Nobody has ever built anything like it since. Not with modern cranes, not with computers, not with satellites or lasers or 100 years of engineering education. A civilization that had no steel, no wheels for heavy transport, no pulleys, and no machines managed to stack 3 million stone blocks into a structure so precise that the four sides of its base differ in length by less than 5 centimeters across 230 meters. And they did it 4,500 years ago. So either we have been dramatically underestimating what ancient humans were capable of, or there is something about this story that nobody has fully explained yet. And as it turns out, both of those things are true at the same time. Let's start with something that should genuinely bother you. For most of modern history, the official explanation for how the pyramids were built was that workers dragged enormous stone blocks across the sand on wooden sledges using brute human muscle. That was it. That was the theory that went into textbooks, documentaries, and classrooms for over a century. And the problem with it is not that it is impossible. The problem is that it makes no mathematical sense. A single stone block in the Great Pyramid of Giza weighs on average 2.5 tons. Some of the granite blocks used deeper inside weigh 70 tons. Dragging those across dry sand would require so much friction and force that you would need hundreds of people per block, and the sand itself would pile up and stop the sledge within meters. Engineers, who ran the actual numbers, came back with the same answer every time. The simple drag theory does not work. Something else was happening. Here is what actually changed the picture. In 2013, archaeologists discovered something extraordinary inside a sealed cave near the Red Sea coast of Egypt. It was the world's oldest papyrus diary ever found, written by a man named Merer, who was a mid-level supervisor on the pyramid construction team. And his daily entries describe in remarkable detail a completely different system than anyone had imagined. He writes about transporting the white limestone casing blocks from quarries at Tura by boat, traveling along the Nile and then into a network of purpose-built canals that brought the blocks directly to the base of the Giza Plateau. The ancient Egyptians were not dragging stones across the desert, they were sailing them on water. And once archaeologists knew what to look for, they found the evidence of those canals buried under the sand, just as Merer described. But water transport only solved the delivery problem. The blocks still had to get up. And this is where things get genuinely mind-bending, because in March 2026, a new study published in a scientific heritage journal presented the most compelling answer yet to how those blocks climbed to heights of over 140 meters. The theory proposes something called an internal edge ramp, a hidden spiral pathway that ran along the inside edges of the pyramid structure itself, built into the skeleton as it grew, allowing workers to haul blocks upward through the interior of the pyramid rather than up a massive external slope. And the reason this theory is so powerful is that it matches perfectly with mysterious voids that scanners detected inside the pyramid using cosmic ray technology. Those voids are exactly where the hidden internal ramp corridors would be. The pyramid was being used as its own construction machine. Now let's talk about the workers, because this is where history got something badly wrong for a very long time. For generations, people assumed, and some films and books outright stated, that the pyramids were built by slaves, tens of thousands of enslaved people forced to work under brutality and threat. And that image is completely contradicted by the evidence that archaeologists have actually found. The workers' village, discovered near the Giza Plateau, tells an entirely different story. These workers had their own town. They had bakeries producing massive quantities of bread and beer, which were distributed as payment and nutrition. They had medical facilities where archaeologists found healed bone fractures suggesting people received actual care when they were injured. They had their own burial grounds where they were interred with respect. Records show the workers were organized into named teams with team pride, competitive records of blocks placed, and supervisors like Merer who kept meticulous professional diaries. These were skilled craftsmen, specialists, and organized laborers who were fed, housed, and valued because this project was the most important thing their civilization had ever attempted. The scale of the organization alone is staggering. Around 20. No zero people working at any given time is the current estimate, cycling through the site in rotating shifts so that the work never stopped. The logistics of feeding, housing, and coordinating that many specialists in the middle of the desert 4,500 years ago required a level of administrative sophistication that rivals anything modern project management has produced. And they were working to tolerances that still impress engineers today. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north within a fraction of a single degree, achieved with no magnetic compass, using only stars and shadow measurements. The corner angle calculations are so accurate that the structure remained the tallest building on Earth for nearly 4,000 years after it was completed. One more thing that tends to get left out. The workers used copper tools, copper chisels, copper saws, copper drill bits with abrasive sand to cut through granite harder than the metal itself. They used wooden sledges on wet sand, because pouring water ahead of the sledge reduced friction dramatically and made it possible for a fraction of the workers to move blocks that dry dragging would have been impossible. And the ramp systems at the lower levels, where the blocks were heaviest and the height was manageable, involved short reusable wooden ramps rebuilt and repositioned constantly as the structure grew rather than one massive permanent earthwork. Every individual problem had a specific, practical, engineered solution. Not magic, not aliens, not lost technology from a vanished civilization. Human beings who understood physics, organization, logistics, geometry, and the properties of water and stone better than we ever gave them credit for. What the pyramids actually represent is not a mystery about how they were built. Now that we are finally reading the evidence correctly, the construction methods are becoming clearer with every new discovery. What the pyramids represent is a question about human ambition and what becomes possible when tens of thousands of skilled people are organized around a single goal with no distraction and no limit on time or effort. 4,500 years later, nothing we have built comes close to lasting as long or meaning as much. And the people who built them left us their names, their diaries, their lunch receipts, and their bones. They were not gods. They were not aliens. They were humans. And that is the most extraordinary part of the whole story.